Guys, let's start our live stream. It's 8 p.m. in Washington, D.C. My name is Ksenia Turkova. Thanks for watching me, for joining my live stream tonight. And please share your thoughts and let me know if you hear me well, if you see me well, and just share your thoughts. Ask some questions, and I will try to answer them. You guys asked me uh, what happened because you haven't seen my videos for a while, and I really didn't post much last time, maybe last couple of weeks. And the thing is, it's very simple. The reason is very simple because I have been very busy and very tired. And it's I know I need to be consistent when I'm doing a YouTube channel. I need to be consistent if I want to succeed. But to be honest, it's very, very difficult. It's very hard to combine a full-time job, a family, and I'm very much involved in the family life, and I like it, and I like dedicating my time to my family, to my husband, to my dogs, and to my son, and so on. So all parts of my life are equally important for me. So that's why it's very difficult. It's challenging. Although I want to continue, and I think it's especially challenging because I kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing at work. So my work day looks like like recordings and interviews and going on air and recording podcasts, audio podcasts and video podcasts because I work for a digital team of Voice of America. So it's kind of the same thing. And I, I finish my workday, and after that I need to think, what should I post today on my YouTube channel? Sometimes it's so exhausting, and I still need to do it. That's why I felt the last maybe couple of weeks I felt kind of out of energy, and I just couldn't post anything, and I apologize for that. I will try to catch up, and I will try to still post as much as I can. And there is still a lot of topics I need to cover, a lot of linguistic topics, Ukraine and Russia related, and propaganda and new words. And this weekend I'm going to Illinois to give a lecture about Russian propaganda again, and I will post from there to keep you updated. So it's just been difficult. So I apologize again for that. Uh, Today we're going to talk about Vladimir Kara-Murza, a Russian politician, Russian journalist, and an activist. And I'm going to discuss as well the future of the opposition in Russia, a future of those opposition politicians who decided, who have chosen to stay in Russia. And there are some people like that. So I will tell you about that. But first of all, I want to talk about this unbelievably cruel, harsh sentence to Vladimir Kara-Murza. 25 years in prison in a strict colony. And it's probably the first time a Russian opposition politician, I mean, in nowadays after the war started, and it's not Stalin era, although they compare it a lot with the Stalin era, and I will talk about that a little bit. So it's first time that Russian politician is sentenced to um, such a huge amount of years in prison, 25 years, and people even call it, there is an expression like Stalin term. They call it Stalin sentence, because in Stalin era they sentenced people to terms like that in prison, and we will talk about that. So to remind you what happened and who is Vladimir Kara-Murza, maybe you don't know, a Russian court on Monday convicted one of the top opposition figures in Russia, Vladimir Kara-Murza Jr., because I will talk today, I will dedicate a certain part of my live stream to his father, and I will tell you why. So this is Vladimir Kara-Murza Jr. Of treason for publicly denouncing Moscow's war in Ukraine and sentenced him to, as I said before, 25 years in prison as part of the Kremlin's relentless crackdown on critics of the invasion. The political activist and journalist who twice survived poisonings he blamed on Russian authorities. Maybe you remember about that. They were trying to poison him twice, and it was never investigated. So we don't know what happened. We just know that he was poisoned with something, and he barely survived. So he has rejected the charges against him as punishment for standing up to President Vladimir Putin, and likened the proceedings to the show trials under Soviet dictators Joseph Stalin. Human rights organizations and Western governments denounced the verdict and demanded his release. Amnesty International, the organization Amnesty International, declared Vladimir Kara-Murza to be a prisoner of conscience. Uh, that was a quote from the text of Associated Press news agency. I read it just to remind you about what happened. And another quote from the same news message. Kara-Murza reacted calmly. The judge read the verdict and sentence in a quick monotone. His lawyer, Maria Eastmont, later quoted him as telling her, uh, so Kara-Murza told this to his lawyer, my self-esteem has risen. I realized that I have done everything right. 25 years is the highest appraisal that I could get for doing what I did and what I believed in as a citizen, a patriot, and a politician, said Vladimir Kara-Murza. And yesterday I wrote a post in the community on my YouTube channel uh, about what happened, and I mentioned that I knew Vladimir personally, and I like to talk about that a little, and about him and about his father, who I was friends with. So everybody, of course, was shocked by that sentence. Although, nothing is shocking now in Russia. After the full-scale war against Ukraine started, nothing is shocking because they arrest people for nothing, for holding a blank paper, for saying that they want peace, for quoting Bible, for singing songs, for telling about their dreams. You know that story of a man who wrote stories on Instagram about the dream about Vladimir Zelensky, and he was detained. So nothing is shocking, but still, when a person is sentenced to 25 years, it is shocking. It is still shocking, and you you question, you ask yourself, why are they so cruel to him? What is the reason? Because even Navalny was not sentenced to that that many years. Why are they so cruel to Vladimir Kara-Murza personally? What did he do to them? Or maybe there is another reason. And what is that reason? Maybe they're trying to say something, to tell something to Russian people, to those who are still not afraid of the authorities, who are still not afraid of expressing their thoughts and beliefs, and who are not supporting that war. Maybe they're trying to scare them, to say something to them. And we will talk about that, about the reasons. But first of all, I wanted to as I said before, to talk a little bit about Vladimir Kara-Murza and his father, also Vladimir Kara-Murza. That's why they call him Vladimir Kara-Murza Jr. Let me take a quick look at the chat. Greetings from Canada, from Oklahoma. Oh, my husband is from Oklahoma, and I like this state very much. So greetings to Oklahoma as well. I've been there several times. Uh, Putin is saying the user is back. Okay. So please express your thoughts, express yourself, and write something in the chat so we can communicate and we can have some kind of dialogue. Were you following this trial, this process against Vladimir Kara-Murza? What do you think about that? What do you think? Why the sentence is that harsh? What are your thoughts about that? From Fall River, Massachusetts. Hi. Okay. So as I mentioned before, I was a friend of his father, Vladimir Kara-Murza, who passed away, unfortunately, several years ago. He was very sick. And we were colleagues and friends for many years. We worked together on NTV. You remember I told you guys about the channel, one of the maybe the best news channel in Russia in 90s, and I was lucky to work there. First as an intern, and then I got a job there. And I was very, very young when I became a reporter for NTV, and then a morning host. It was just a huge luck. I couldn't believe. I was so happy and so lucky. And Vladimir Kara-Murza was already by that time. He is much older than me. So he. I'm talking again. I'm talking now about the father of Vladimir Kara-Murza Jr., who yesterday was sentenced to 25 years in prison. So I'm talking about his dad, about his father, who has the same name. And so he was already a very famous journalist, one of the hosts on NTV. He had his night news program. He was well known. And you know, I don't remember, was it like quickly we became friends, at what point we became friends, but I do remember that he was one of those people who treated me, and not only me, other young people who just started their job on NTV. He treated us as equals. And it was so, I appreciate it so much, because not every famous journalist acts that way. And he was always very, mm, very simple in communication with people in a good way. Very nice, very, very nice and very honest, and a straightforward person, uh, brave. And so I was very happy to work with him, and he was kind of a father figure for me. We really became friends. So we would meet sometimes after work and chat. And he was an historian. He knew a lot, and he always supported me. And we had this special, like, kind of father-daughter or uncle niece relationship, something like that. He was always interested in my life, and when I told him I was about to move to the United States, he supported me, and he immediately. That's how I knew Vladimir Kara-Murza Jr., because he lived here at that point, because he lived here in Washington, D.C. with his family, with his wife and 3 kids. And so his father, when he knew I was about to move to the US, the first thing he did, he gave me his number, and he said, please text Volodya, text my son, so you guys can get together, and maybe he can help you as a new immigrant and stuff like that. And so that was so nice. And we did meet here in Washington, D.C., in the church, because Vladimir Kara-Murza is a religious person. He's Orthodox Christian, and we met in an Orthodox church with his wife and children. And we sometimes we would talk about like how we need to meet, but we were too busy, both of us. And then he returned to Moscow, and since then I didn't see him. And so I had this kind of special relationship with his dad, who was really involved in my life and was very supportive. And again, he was a rare person. They both were are. They are the same because they have the same qualities. They're very honest and brave, and they never betray their principles. And that's how I knew that was Vladimir Kara-Murza, who I knew, that famous journalist from NTV and from TVS, another channel that was shut down. And I will tell you one story. The story you probably uh, will never know from many newspapers and news. And it wasn't newspapers, but many years ago. Now everybody forgot about that. But I will tell you that story, and it's very interesting, about Vladimir Kara-Murza, the father of Vladimir Kara-Murza Jr. So when NTV channel, you remember NTV, that first channel I worked on, it was overtaken by the state oil company Gazprom. After that, we created the team, the majority of the journalists from NTV, the big part of the team, we created a new channel called TVS. But that channel, unfortunately, was also shut down. It was shut down by the Russian authorities because of the censorship, because we criticized Putin and other Russian authorities, and so after TVS was shut down, so they overtook NTV. They shut down TV6. Then we started the channel called TVS, and they shut down that channel again. So it was like the chain of events. And some of the journalists, after the third story like that, so they kill one TV channel, they kill the second TV channel, they kill the third TV channel, and at some point, some people are not, I wouldn't say like not strong enough, because Vladimir Kara-Murza was a very strong person with strong principles and views and beliefs. But some people, they just can't move on, can't go on with TV. They are too disappointed, and they need a break, or they need to change their profession. And I know I have some friends who, after that, they decided to quit, to change the profession, because it was too painful for them. And so what Vladimir Kara-Murza did, the father, after TVS, the last channel was shut down, was closed, he let me just a second, I will find this. So a lot of journalists, they're trying to we stayed without job, right? We lost our job. So some of the journalists, they decided to work for government. So they changed their views, I don't know, positions. So they decided to work for the government. And some of them, unfortunately, became propagandists. And some of them are very well-known propagandists right now. Another part of the journalists, like me, for example, we were trying to find some independent islands islands of freedom in Russia, and that was still possible, and to the certain point. And there was the third group of journalists who was so hurt and disappointed that they wanted to quit or to take a break. And Vladimir Kara-Murza, what he did, I will tell you. He decided to quit, and he got a job in a boiler room. Why in a boiler room? They wrote about it in newspapers. So he wanted to show that and it was 20 years ago, more than 20, 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, 2003. So much, it was not even, no war with Ukraine, no war with Georgia, anything. It was 2003. But he understood everything about Putin already. And he said, I don't want to work on this TV anymore. And he didn't actually. He said, I want to quit. I'm not going to work on TV in Russia anymore. And he went to that boiler room and got a job. So he returned to the work that saw him through life in the Soviet Union, watching dials and flicking switches in the boiler room of a local heating plant. And I will quote him. I was one of the most promising students to graduate from the history faculty at Moscow State University, but it was impossible for me. He was talking about Soviet era, but it was impossible for me to work with the Soviet authorities, the communists and KGB who had executed relatives of mine, he said. So for years, I worked as a cleaner and the stoker in a boiler room until after the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991. Now I've returned to what I was back then. And he worked for some time in a boiler room in 2003 after TVS channel was shut down. So that I don't know anyone like that who would quit TV, good salary, being famous, recognizable on the streets, and to quit, to leave all this and to work in a boiler room. That was Vladimir Kara-Murza, father of Vladimir Kara-Murza the Jr. That was that kind of person, and he said about TVS, he said, those journalists were my family. And 3 weeks ago, the Kremlin destroyed it. He was saying in one of the interviews after the shutdown of the TVS channel. A normal person, said Kara-Murza, can't suddenly create a new family straight after the old one. The one he loved has been wiped out. So he took a break. Then he returned to his to the journalism. He became a journalist again. Continued to be a journalist. But there was that period of time when he worked in a boiler room, and I think it's a very impressive story, and it's a story that can tell us a lot about this person. And as I said before, his son is the same. He has the same qualities, and that's why he decided to return to Moscow. And we will talk about that as well. So maybe the last thing I want to tell you about the father. You know what was the last message he sent me on Facebook? I checked it yesterday. I decided to check it. So the last message was, do you remember how much fun we had back in 2001? Believe me, we'll have it again. And he said, that was the last message he sent me before he passed away. And he actually told me that many times, like, we will have Independence TV again. Believe me, we will have it. And we will have our team again. We will have that much fun as we had in 2001, more than 20 years ago. So although he understood everything about the regime, he was still optimist, and he believed that that regime will end at some point, and media in Russia will be free, and we can work together again. Unfortunately, I'm not that optimistic, especially now after the full-scale war started, and he didn't know about that war because he passed away before. So now the picture is much less optimistic. But sometimes I read those messages and I think, what if he's right? Uh, what if he's right? Uh, and we will see it again, what he was talking about. And what if we will work on those TV channels we had many years ago, like it was that time? So sometimes it helps me to read it. So let me take a quick look at the chat, and then we will talk about the sentence itself and the reasons of such a harsh sentence. Why did Kara-Murza return to Russia in the current climate, and how can he continue fighting for his cause while in prison? Wouldn't have been better to stay outside Russia and speak up? That is a very good question, and I'm going to answer this question a little bit later, because first of all, I wanted to try to discuss with you. Maybe you have some thoughts as well about that. Why 25 years? Why was that sentence so harsh, so cruel? First reason, and a lot of experts say that that it might be a revenge, some kind of revenge, because Kara-Murza was involved in creating the so-called Magnitsky list, which caused a certain number of people, to come under U.S. sanctions. And among those people, there was Sergei Podoprigorov, a judge in the Moscow Municipal Court, which was hearing a case against Vladimir Kara-Murza. So that certain judge was hearing a case against Vladimir Kara-Murza, and that particular judge was under the sanctions because of Vladimir Kara-Murza, because of Magnitsky list. And Vladimir Kara-Murza was involved into creating that list. He was pushing it. So that might be some kind of personal revenge. And that's what a lot of people are talking about now as the main reason why 25 years. So the second reason might be more symbolic for the Russian authorities, for Putin, that they want to scare people even more. I don't see, to be honest, any logic in it, because people are already scared, very scared. People are scared of, looking at their phones while taking a metro. Because there was a story, I will tell you, I don't remember if I told you that story several weeks ago. Someone was in the metro, so was taking a metro and reading something on the screen of their smartphone. And the neighbor, the person who was sitting next to them, he was kind of like over looking in the phone, and he saw something, maybe some website of independent media or Facebook post or something that he considered suspicious, and he immediately called the police, and that first person was detained for the discreditation of the Russian army, because he was reading something not some resources, not propagandist resources. So people are already scared. They're scared to talk with their friends in their kitchens, to look in their smartphones, to discuss something over the phones, to use certain applications like Facebook. They use other applications to to discuss the current events with their relatives, for example. There is no mass protest in Russia. We see that because all Russian opposition is in prison. Navalny, Ilya Yashin, and so on, and a lot of other opposition politicians, not that famous. They are all in prison or under arrest or something else, or they declared foreign agents. They had to leave the country. So there is nobody to protest, and there is sometimes like sparks of individual protest, and very peaceful, but usually peaceful, when people bring flowers to the Ukrainian monuments to express their support to Ukraine. So it's very, very sporadical and individual, and it's not organized. It's not a mass protest. So people are already scared of everything, but still, because there is no logic in Putin's acts and in Putin and Russian authorities' acts in general, they decided, let's scare even more. Let's scare them even more to show them that yes, Stalin era is back. That they will put people for prison for the rest of their lives if they say something against the war. So there are two reasons. One is like the most obvious reason, and the second one is just a symbolic act, and in terms of war, it's probably important for Putin to show people that they can't say anything. So there are two reasons. And now I will try to answer your question. Why did Kara-Murza return to Russia? He said once that he used that expression. He said, you can't be a teleworking politician. During pandemic, we were teleworking, and some of us still teleworking. So you can't be teleworking politician. You need to be, if you are a politician, you need to be in the country with your people. And that was his strong belief. Maybe it's not logical, maybe it is naive, but that's what was what he believed in. And I know that that's why Alexei Navalny returned to Russia. That's why Ilya Yashin stayed in Russia. We can criticize their decisions, but they were sincere decisions. Their decisions were really sincere. They wanted to be with their people, even in prison. Even in prison, and there are still some politicians in Russia who stay there, who decided consciously to stay in Russia. They don't want to leave. They want to be with people. Some of them do believe that they want to. They still they still can't change something. To be honest, I do not agree with that. I don't want to criticize them because I'm not in Russia, and it's very difficult now to be there. But I do not believe that being in Russia, you can do something, you can make any changes. I think it's very naive to think that way. But at the same time, I understand them, and I will tell you why. Today, I recorded an interview with one of the opposition politicians who stays in Russia. Her name is Yulia Galyamina. She was already under arrest once. There was a criminal case against her. So now she's free. And she's an opposition activist and a politician. She's also a linguist, by the way, and she studies political language, which is very interesting. I also study political language. So she decided, she made her choice to stay in Russia. And today, while talking to her, I asked her several times and in different ways. I asked her, "Do you really believe you can make any changes? Why are you staying?" And I asked her the same questions. A question I said, "Eh, "Do you want to stay even after that sentence to Kara-Murza? 25 years? Aren't you scared?" And she said, "Well, yes, there is a lot of fear now in Russia. Everybody is scared. But at the same time, if you are paralyzed by fear, you cannot do anything." And she said she believed that she could do something, and she even encouraged people to take part in the district elections, municipal elections, very on a lower level. uh, I, to be honest, I do not agree with her. Again, I think it's very naive because the whole election system in Russia is corrupt, not even corrupt, like uh, destroyed, devalued. They're not uh, legit, those elections in Russia, the whole system. But still, she does believe in that. But she told me another reason, and that reason I would agree with. She told me that she stays because she wants. There are a lot of people who trust her, and she doesn't want those people to feel lonely in their beliefs, in their views. She wants to be with them, and that reason I understand well, and I think it might be a reason. So just to give people that feeling that they're not alone, it's very important because I can tell you, I have friends and relatives in Moscow. And for example, for my mom, it's very difficult to live there because of that, because she feels lonely. uh, 90% of people she's surrounded with, like her co-workers and neighbors. I'm not talking about like close friends. I mean just people in everyday communication, people she meets on the streets and the public transportation and stuff like that. So she has a feeling, maybe it's not true, that she's surrounded by people who support the war, who are aggressive Putin supporters, who are full of hate, and so on. And it's very painful for her to stay there. Uh, Unfortunately, she can visit me, but she can't move here forever. Not yet, unfortunately. So for some time, she needs to stay there. And it's very difficult for her. So each time she meets someone who shares her views and who she can talk to without like being cautious, without avoiding certain topics, each time she meets person like that, she's very happy. And maybe that's what Yulia Galyamina meant. So she wants to be there for people, and I can understand that. I don't think, unfortunately, she can do anything uh, being included in that political system, but she can be that supportive figure for people, and it's also important. She also told me that, and a lot of people are saying that now, that she doesn't believe that Vladimir Kara-Murza will stay in prison for 25 years, that he will be, in her opinion, he will be released much earlier. Because, as she said, it's very optimistic for them, for Putin and his and other people, to think that they will have power for 25 years more. It's very optimistic. So for her, it's obvious that it won't be 25 years. Or maybe there will be some exchange. And I know that People are talking about that now. So let me look at the chat again. I think I don't want to read like uh, some words that are hate speech. So are no longer, you mean Russians, are no longer sending messages, but simply acting in their natural state as cruel monsters. And Stephen, I agree with you. Yes, they're acting as cruel monsters. That's true. That's true. Sometimes there is no logic. It's very simple. It's very simple. They want to be monsters. Uh, it's too bad he went back. Yes, a lot of people think that way. It's too bad he went to that trap, and he knew what to expect, I think. But at the same time, I was trying to explain why he did it, and I don't think we can judge him, because I would agree with the part that the politician cannot be a politician outside of country. It's very difficult. The politician needs to be with the people. Uh, this Kara-Murza situation is awful. This is a message from Alex. If this crime would normally receive 2-3 years in prison, but suddenly is punishable by 20 years, is this a Stalinist change to scare people? That's I actually answered that question already. And if people are already scared, then is there any symbolism to this harsh sentence, or is it a harsh punishment directed specifically at Kara-Murza? I think I also I answered that as well. I think it's both, to scare people even more, to be monsters, as Stephen said, and I agree with that, and to punish specifically Kara-Murza, because it might be a revenge from the side of the judge who was in charge for the trial. So there is several reasons combined. So that's what actually I wanted to talk to you about. So the reasons and about the question why he returned to Russia. So now very few Russian politicians, opposition politicians, are staying in Russia. But still there are some, as Yulia Galyamina. And she another thing she told me, that this sentence shows us, in her opinion, you probably wouldn't agree, or would agree, I don't know. In her opinion, that sentence, 25 years, shows us, it's actually a good sign, because it shows us that people in Russia do not support the war. So there is still a significant amount of people uh, who are not supporting the war, and that amount is that significant that Kremlin decided to scare them even more, because they understand that there is still that part of the society that does not accept the war, and they need to scare them. So for her, it's awful, it's horrible, but at the same time, it might be considered as a good sign, because it tells us that not all people, not at all, in Russia are supporting the war. So this is her opinion. Why can't the people in free republics who identify as Russian move to Russia instead of trying to break away from their current country? I'm thinking about Transnistria at the moment. Uh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your question. In free republic, um, who identify as Russian move to Russia. Mm. I didn't understand well. What do you mean? Like, why don't they go to Russia? Uh, Please, can you clarify the question, because I didn't understand well. So that's before I'm about to end my live stream. I will be waiting for a couple of questions more, and you can just tell me. Moldovan who identify as Russian just moved to Russia. But why would they move to Russia? They don't want to move to Russia because of the situation. Because people in those republics are they understand what is going on, so they don't want to go there. So it's a very it's a difficult question. Is there any like future for Russian opposition in Russia? Um, on the one hand, there is no future at all because all the opposition is all opposition left the country or is in prison, as I said before. But at the same time, there are still some figures like Vladimir Kara-Murza and other well-known opposition leaders who show with their examples that uh, they they are not afraid of the regime, and it's very important to show that they are not afraid because Putin wants people to be afraid of him. He wants Ukrainian to be afraid of him, and when that's why he, I think, is so mad because Ukrainians from the beginning of that war they were showing that they were not afraid with in different ways. On the front line, they were showing that they are not afraid and they were fighting and they are fighting. And on social media, a lot of memes and jokes. They showed great sense of humor. So they show that they are unbreakable and they're not afraid of that big so-called brother with its brotherly love, so-called. That was what makes Putin mad and angry when people are not afraid of him. And I think when there are still people like Vladimir Kara-Murza, maybe there is some future for Russian opposition, but not in these circumstances. After the collapse of this, after the fall of this regime, maybe there is a future because there are people who uh, who want to be there and to serve the country in a good way. Uh, so that is a controversial question, but for now, in my opinion, being in Russia, you cannot change anything. You can just support people. Being you can be a supportive figure for people. That will be, I think, maybe a conclusion. If Russia is so bad, you don't want to be there, then just accept the Moldovan government as your own and settle for that. Now I understand. I'm sorry. I was a little bit distracted by other thoughts and topics. Now, yes, there is a. I was also thinking about that. Why wouldn't you go to Russia and stay, well, so-called independent? Uh, because I think people understand that Russia is bad. If we say it that simple, I mean the regime now is bad, and that's not that good for people. It's for the same reason. For example, a lot of people outside Russia, immigrants, for example, here in the United States and in Europe, they criticize a lot the country they live in. I know Russian immigrants like that. For example, here they would criticize the United States for everything, and they would praise Putin and praise Russia, but they would never come back. They would never go back. They like living here in the United States, criticizing the United States rather than go to Russia. Although they say all the time like they will love Russia, will love Putin and stuff like that. There is a conundrum. I don't know why. I don't understand how it can be combined in one head, but It's a very well-known phenomenon. People do that. So maybe it's the same thing with the republic, with the republics. So thank you so much, guys, for watching me. I'm a little bit tired of talking, but I will try to do live streams regularly. And as I said in the beginning of that live stream, I will try to catch up to post more videos and to be more active. So please forgive me for abandoning my channel for a couple of weeks. And if you have topics for me to cover, please don't hesitate to share. Just leave comments, ask questions, and I will try. I actually write down everything since the beginning of my channel, but I just didn't have time to answer all your questions. And you guys ask a lot of very good smart questions, interesting questions, and I will try to answer them. And please share your thoughts. What topics do you want me to cover? And I also have a question. I probably will post some kind of a poll on in the community on my YouTube channel, where I will ask you which day is preferable for you, would be preferable for you for the live stream, to discuss the current events, and to talk about the words of the week, for example, new words and new expressions and what propaganda says. So also share, please, maybe in the comments to this video, which day would be preferable. Is it a weekday or weekend? And I will try to adjust. Thank you so much again for watching me. So see you in live stream, I guess next week, I hope. I'll try to do my best. Thank you. Bye.